Hi, Liv.
Hi, Mena.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
So, why are we here?
We're going to do a little question and answer for iHunt's release.
Gosh, is it out?
Yeah, as of this recording, yes.
Wow, where can people find it?
Currently, they can find it at itch.io and they can find it at RPG.
Wow, okay, awesome. So, with that in mind, what is it?
iHunt is an RPG. It's a tabletop RPG that is based on Fate Core. And it is a game about monster hunting in the gig economy. It is Buffy meets Uber, Supernatural meets Fiverr, Blade meets Airbnb.
Blade.
Yeah.
You got me with Blade.
Yeah. So that's iHunt in a nutshell. It's a game about poor millennials who are scraping by and making bad choices because there's no good choice.
So we pulled some questions in both from my notes and from people asking on the Facebooks or the Twitters.
Yeah.
And someone specifically asked, what would you tell somebody who hasn't been following the progress of this game that they need to know about this game?
Very simply, on the setting side, on the what you're playing, Buffy meets Uber. It's very simple. You're playing young people who are getting by paycheck to paycheck, and they are hunting monsters on an app very much like an Uber or a Fiverr or something like that.
Or a Grindr.
Or a Grindr, yeah. So that's the premise. And from a game perspective, it's a heavily dramatic, high action, sort of high drama, pulpy horror game. It contrasts action and monster hunting and beating vampire ass with economic horror, being broke. And it engages that all with gallows humor and sort of irreverent sarcasm.
Irreverent sarcasm.
Yeah.
Not something you're known for. It's a good stretch for you.
Yeah. I had to really reach deep into my Daria side.
Daria, boy. There we've dated ourselves, haven't we?
Yeah.
So with dating in mind then, what kind of technology are you using to prevent anyone who is not a millennial from playing this game?
Well, boomers, if they want to play this game, it's a digital game. It's a PDF, so they're going to need to get their grandchildren to help them with the computer. But no, it's a game for everyone.
It's a game for everyone.
It's not just a game for millennials.
No.
Any more than like Dungeons and Dragons is a game for knights and wizards.
Sure.
You don't have to be something to play something in a role-playing game. That's sort of the beauty of it.
Oh, sure.
I think that this game has a lot to offer, like Gen Z people, Gen X people, and even some boomers and stuff like that.
All right.
I think that there's a lot to be sort of gained from playing something outside of your comfort zone.
Okay. So do you think somebody from, say, the Lost generation who was, I don't know, running for president would be able to play iHunt?
Yeah, Bernie Sanders would absolutely be able to play iHunt.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
You mentioned that it is powered by Fate.
Yeah.
Why?
Powered by Fate for a couple big reasons. The first off is it saved a lot of effort in like communicating game concepts. iHunt is a kind of high concept idea. It's something that I haven't really seen in games, and so I felt that approaching it with a familiar game system might be a better approach than otherwise. I kind of wanted to do something new, but then as I was playing through it, I really felt that I didn't need to, that the premise stood on its own well enough. It delivers more. It like brings a lot to the table by itself. Okay. Now, from a sort of mechanical standpoint, Fate does pulp action very well.
Incredibly well.
Incredibly well. It powers games like Atomic Robo, Dresden Files, Spirit of the Century. So it does that sort of like two-fisted action very well. Now, iHunt is a horror game, and I don't really think that Fate by itself does horror well. If anything, it does it very poorly, because Fate is very much about like competence porn. It's about watching the player succeed. For a while, I was having difficulty reconciling that with the economic horror of iHunt and the sort of supernatural horror of iHunt. Until I came to the conclusion that in the novels that these are based on, the iHunt series of novels, the horror isn't the monsters. The principle behind iHunt is that it's a horror story where eviction is scarier than any vampire. We play iHunt to watch the hunters do awesome things, kick a lot of ass, and then they have to deal with the economic horror. Fate is is actually good for that if you sort of reskin it a little bit. It's a good balance.
It's a good balance. So we had another regular member of the co-op and possibly one of the greatest shitposters on the internet. Phil asked, did anything not make the cut?
Did anything not make the cut?
Anything that you wanted to put in the book that didn't get it into the book?
Yeah, actually, I had some ideas for constructs. I wanted to do monsters that were like artificial constructs, AIs,
okay,
Frankenstein monsters, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Because there is an iHunt novel where Lana hunts a rogue AI.
Yeah.
But I didn't quite have the room to fit that, and I think that that's going to be like one of the first supplement type ideas that we develop.
So we're going to do one that'll cover that episode of the X-Files.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know you were all worried about whether or not we could cover that episode of the X-Files.
Yeah.
And I think I wrote for you a number of weird oddball monsters.
Like cryptid type things?
Yeah, some cryptids, some urban legends, some creepypastas that we just didn't have room for in the monster section as is.
Yeah, the monster section is already really bloated. It's very big.
Not bloated, but...
Well, it's not bloated in a bad way. It's the biggest chapter.
Yeah.
And it was already sort of pushing at the seams, so we really needed to slim it down a little bit. And some of that content can go into a supplement.
And I think that covers somebody else was asking if there was going to be AIs and that sort of thing. There's not.
Yeah, there's not currently. You
not currently.
Could build them with the monster
absolutely.
rules. Yeah, the monster rules as it is, you can build pretty much whatever you want. There's a lot of, it's very open-ended. There's a big collection of powers, and you sort of hodgepodge, piecemeal your monster together.
We spent hours sitting there going, okay, what's a monster? Oh, this is a monster. Do we have rules that cover it? Yeah, actually, I guess we do. Like, we went through the list, you know?
Yeah. So it's a pretty open-ended system, and it covers a lot. So you can do an AI-style monster already, but I want to introduce some new powers and stuff to really round them out.
So how much dial twisting do you think it would take to be able to take iHunt as it is, which is basically 5 minutes from now style fiction, and make it cyberpunk?
It would be super easy. Basically, it comes down to the aesthetics and the description. You could run iHunt as it is, as a cyberpunk game, without really modifying anything.
All right.
Just change the words on what the powers are for the monsters, and you've got it.
And just point to an article about what, say, Peter Thiel's already doing.
Yeah. Well, what Peter Thiel's already doing is literally referenced in the book, and that's pretty much the birth of cyberpunk, or at least what will end up being. So, yeah, I think that cyberpunk is very, very, very close to iHunt thematically.
Okay, so then from the other side, how about Victorian era iHunt?
So Victorian era iHunt would actually be fairly easy, I think. You have to reskin some of the assumptions, like the gig economy, of course.
Right.
You don't have iPhones and you don't have apps. But you could very well do freelance monster hunting because, you had journeymen and stuff like that.
Right.
The only real thing that you would have to do is rename a lot of the skill sets, because the skill sets are all like they're jobs.
Yeah.
Or at least dispositions in the modern world.
Okay.
So like hacker. You're not going to have a lot of Victorian hackers, but you might have like a tinkerer or something. So
you could, as long as you're exploring the themes of poverty, cultural oppression, who's the real monster, quote unquote, there's a little bit of room as far as that goes.
Well, I think there's a lot of room for it. The thing about iHunt, though, that you really have to hit hard on is the reality of it. So if you're going to do Victorian, you really have to understand the economic concerns of the time, the health concerns of the time. It's about the struggles that working people face. So if you don't really know that, then you really run the risk of turning it into a fantasy.
Yeah.
More power to you if you want to do that. But if you want to make it feel like iHunt in a different environment, you really want to stick with the realness.
Okay, cool. So some people mentioned an interest in the fact that it is a game that looks at dealing with the daily cost of survival.
Yeah.
How do we do that without having itemized lists of Electrum?
Okay, so there's no itemized list of anything. There's no equipment list. There's no, you don't keep track of your cash. The thing about iHunts is that it acknowledges the reality of poverty and the reality of lower end, microeconomics. It's expensive to be poor.
Yeah.
Two people who have the same amount of money have different lifestyles depending on class privilege and, racial and gender privilege, all kinds of things like that, community privilege, places of living. And so just tracking that money, tracking assets and that sort of thing doesn't really say much about a person's lifestyle. In iHunt, one of the main mechanics that we hit home with in every episode, every game session, is that the characters are struggling, that something is going to drag them back down, even if they're getting a win, even if they're getting ahead, in money and monetarily, then something's going to pull them back down to the ground.
Okay. So what do you think in the design, in the writing, or what have you, prevents this from being then just poverty porn or, tragedy?
The important thing here is that since you're not keeping track of money and you know that there's always going to be a money struggle, the advancement, the actual reward system is a system called selfies. And selfies are all about experiences. A millennial, if they get their money, if they get cash, if they get paid, something will take that away.
Yeah.
I know if I have a windfall, if I get a nice tax return of $800, my car's going to break down and I'm going to have an $800 bill to repair my engine.
Okay.
That's just how money works when you're poor.
Yeah.
But experiences, the things that happen in my life that are worth caring about, those can't be taken away from me. Something that is cool, something that I've learned from, something that has impacted me, that can't be taken away. So that is important to millennials.
Okay.
And these selfies are life events for the characters, essentially how you level up. That's how you advance the character.
Okay.
You collect selfies.
Great. Okay, so I remembered what I was going to ask you earlier.
Okay.
How many copies of iHunt do you think we'd need to sell before we could release iHunt in the Victorian era?
Oh, iHunt in the Victorian era, we'd really need to do like 1,000 copies at least.
Okay, at least 1,000 copies.
At least 1,000 copies.
You heard it here. That's the sales goal you want to reach for. Great.
Yeah.
Let's say that iHunt does really well. What do you think will happen that will take away our money? You should see the look of panic in her face. That was really uncalled for.
Yeah. A major family medical bill.
Yeah, there you go. That's what we're counting on.
Yep.
On a lighter note, if you were going to introduce this game to a group of players, but you had the opportunity to show them 3 movies first,
Yeah.
what 3 movies would you want them to watch to be ready for the perfect game of iHunt?
Okay, so for the perfect game of iHunt, I would say Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the classic.
Sure.
Because it's, a comedic movie about hunting vampires.
Right.
It's a big inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to Bother You.
Sure.
Sorry to Bother You, the Boots Riley film that came out earlier this year. It is a movie about capitalist hell.
Yeah.
It's about the sort of the inherent wage slavery that's getting worse and worse. It's about the gig economy. It's about the hustle.
Same struggle.
Yeah. And then I would say probably like Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
Army of Darkness is a good example because of its irreverent approach to its source material.
Yeah.
It is dark, it is gruesome, but it's very fun about it. The hero fails. The hero can fall on his face, and that's okay.
He never has any money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's still the hero of the story regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And that's both the movie and then the Stars series?
Yeah, the Stars series, the TV series.
Highly recommend.
Evil Dead. Yeah.
If you can stomach it.
Yeah, it's very gruesome. It's very gory.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that would be my 3.
Great. Follow up great movies. Let's talk about great writing. In the book.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, everything that I write is perfect and incredible. What's your favorite sample of the things I provided to the game?
My favorite, that would...
You guys can't see. I'm breaking the fourth wall right now, looking at the camera that's not there. Go ahead.
That's a hard one. There's a lot of really good stuff in there.
That's true.
I would say probably the alternative hunters.
The alternative hunters. Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole section that deals with hunters that don't use the iHunt app, and it's not like you're expected to play them, but they're sort of set dressing.
Yeah.
They're a thing that can be brought in by the GM, the director, as plot complication.
Okay, great.
And so there's 6 organizations that hunt vampires and other monsters and creatures of darkness. Those other 6, they're all very interesting. They're all very unique, and they all have like tons of story hooks in a very small space.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
I think, yeah. You're probably right. So a question from the fans.
Sure.
How many vamps would a vamp vamp if a vamp could vamp vamps?
A vamp can vamp vamps.
Oh, okay.
They have the propagation gift,
Okay.
which is just, the propagation feature. Yeah, it's not a gift; it's a feature. So they can actually make other vampires. They can vamp vamps.
Oh, okay.
So theoretically, a vampire could vamp as many vamps as it wanted to vamp, but that's probably limited by things like food sources and the need to, remain under the radar, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Practically, a vampire probably can't vamp a lot of vamps. In San Gennaro, the default city that iHunt takes place in, there are upwards of about 200 vampires at any given time, and the setting assumes that about a year ago, there was a massive war that killed about half of the vampires. Realistically, practically, a vampire could vamp about 100 vamps. And still, be reasonable.
So to put it another way, a vampire would vamp as much as it could vamp if a vampire could vamp vamps.
Correct.
Good, we got that covered. So you mentioned features. What are features?
Monsters have 3 specific types of traits that make up the monster. They have features, creature features, which is a name that I took from Dresden Files.
And classic horror movies.
Well, yeah, it got them from classic horror movies, but yeah. So the features are fundamental traits that make up, the monster's identity. It's stuff that the monster doesn't have to activate. It's not a superpower that they just turn on.
Okay.
It's stuff like they drink blood, or they are, inherently hard to hurt, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And then there's the second type is what we call gifts. Gifts are powers that the monster has to activate and choose to use and to enforce their will on the world.
Great.
And then the third thing that monsters have are called banes. Banes are inherent weaknesses, the kind of things that hunters have to exploit in order to get the kill.
So I know you've mentioned in some of the metafiction the idea of a fair fight. What's a fair fight? Oh, and why don't players want one?
Okay, so fair fight, in the world of iHunt, it's actually hunter slang. A fair fight is a reference to when a hunter dies on the hunt. So if Steve dies, gets killed by a vampire, other hunters would say Steve had a fair fight. The thing is that monsters are disproportionately very powerful. They can kick your ass. In a fair fight, they win. They kill you. They have the hunters have this slang term, they had a fair fight. And that's a way of sort of coping with the reality of their own mortality, the danger of their job, and, it keeps things a little bit more tasteful for them. Now, in game terms, we have this rule called the edge. And the edge is the sort of power differential that's going on, and it's a flow back and forth in the scene. The person with the edge has a massive benefit in the game mechanics. They have a big dice bonus. And the edge shifts depending on who is on top of the time, who is exploiting that power differential. In a default situation, in a white room, nothing else, mattering, no other context, a monster always has the edge. The monster starts with the edge. Hunters have to exploit the edge. They have to take whatever advantage they can. They have to do the sucker punch.
Right.
Otherwise, they die.
Great. Awesome. So, okay, with that in mind, we talked about movies.
Yeah.
So now let me ask you about video games. Now, I know that there's nothing quite like iHunt in a video game format, because we would have played it by now.
Yeah.
But where do you think in terms of humor and humanity? What games do you think kind of hit in the same spots?
Okay, humor, I would go for The Outer Worlds by Obsidian.
Sure.
It has the same sort of irreverence and sarcasm, and the same sort of poking fun at the horror of capitalism. So that's one of them. Now, from the humanity standpoint,
so far as the humanity of things going, I asked this question with one in mind myself, because I also worked on the book, and I feel like now it's very dark. Granted.
Sure.
But there's something about, for example, Night in the Woods that reminds me of that kind of the horror of the story is the reality of the story. It's not the vampire.
Yeah.
It's the poverty.
Yeah.
It's the hopelessness.
I think Night of the Woods is a good example, yeah, because the horror is the environment, the horror is the situation and the reality. So that's definitely the case. I would say also Night in the Woods doesn't take a judgmental approach towards poor people.
Yeah.
It doesn't It doesn't try to pass a dictum against them. It doesn't try to moralize. It doesn't try to make them sound like failures or like less of human beings. It's just they are who they are.
Right. So then in terms of like the range of vibe that you can get out of iHunt, what mechanically do you think helps you twist that dial a little bit from Unite in the Woods more towards your Army of Darkness?
Well, there's sort of an arc to play. The episode, The Job, has a very high action, high drama aspect, and that gives you a lot of room for quipping and, celebrating the badassery, that sort of thing.
Right.
Then afterwards, there's a thing called dilemmas, where basically they're forced to make choices between two undesirable outcomes. You do the job, and you know you're going to get this money, and it's going to be great, but then you get home, it's not in your account yet, and you know that one of your bills is going to, be shut off. Like your electric's going to be shut off or your water's going to be shut off. You don't have a recourse because you can't pay both of them right now. One of them's going to get shut off and it's going to stay off for a few days until this other thing, this iHunt job, clears your bank account.
Sure.
Which one is it? So you get to celebrate, you get to, laugh, you get to be badass, and then you also kind of get dragged down to earth.
Okay. So for the Fate nerds in the audience, what's the difference between perilling using the dilemma and just a straight compel from the Fate core rules?
So a compel...
It's gonna get a little crunchy, guys. Hold on.
A compel is when you put someone up against a problem and they either... that relates to the aspect, and they either have to engage that and face it and sort of deal with it, or they have to back out and they have to spend a fate point. So it's either choose to engage or choose to sacrifice a point and avoid. The dilemma, the imperiled aspect, the thing that we've added to iHunt, you don't get to back out. You have to make a choice between two hard options. This is something that doesn't inherently come up all the time. Like, you can compel anytime you want, but you can't imperil anytime you want. There's only special circumstances where it can happen, because it's actually really fucking shitty. It's really bad when it comes up. So yeah, it's basically between a rock and a hard place.
Got it. What's your perfect table? If you could select from anyone in the world to play a game of iHunt with you, and they would agree, other than me, who would be at your perfect table?
Okay, my perfect table is Boots Riley.
Sure.
I've already mentioned Sorry to Bother You, right? So Boots Riley...
Who, if he's not a gamer, he should be.
I would say for the entertainment value, Ashley Birch.
Ashley Birch, absolutely.
Voice actress from Borderlands 2 and about a million other video games.
Everything good.
Yeah, she's in a lot of stuff. Henry Rollins, he would be a very good old person.
Yeah, we could have him. He could be our token old guy.
Yeah, he'd be our...
He's spry.
Yeah, our token old guy. And he's funny and, intense.
Nice and intense.
So we would have, a very, very political, very funny, and very intense.
Yeah?
That would be good. I like that.
Yeah. So your perfect table is all adults, of course.
Yeah.
How would you feel about running this game for your 12-year-old daughter?
Well, I think the game would work really well. That said, it's very vulgar. It's a violent game. It's about killing monsters. That's something that I know that some people have problems with, and they sort of, have strong opinions about.
Sure.
I personally am cool with my children, facing mature concepts as long as, someone can explain them to them. I personally grew up on, Dungeons and Dragons, Vampire the Masquerade, Shadowrun, all kinds of stuff, witchcraft, and so I wasn't really harmed by that. I only benefited from that, I feel, and so I think that there's no reason why a child of, teenage or whatever shouldn't be able to engage with that kind of material as long as, it's responsible. With
that in mind, I know that the book comes with a worksheet for covering difficult topics.
Yeah.
And how to manage those at the table.
Yeah, page 26.
Page 26, so not in the back.
It's in the beginning, yeah.
It's right in the beginning. So for the example of you're going to run something like iHunt for, your younger players, how does the worksheet work? How does the material there help to give you an idea of what dials to change?
Well, it's basically a list of ground rules. It's a list of topics, things that could come up in a game of iHunt that are negotiable. iHunt is a game about murder. You can't really say that murder can't happen in the game and still play it. so it's not on there. But like brutal murder,
Right.
for example, and gore and blood are all there. The way that this works is that you go through the list of topics, and all of the players decide what the most they're willing to accept of that thing is. There's 4 basic modes of that. There is A-OK. A-OK means I'm cool with it being very important to the game, right up front, all over the place. Awesome. I'm down with that. There is on-camera okay, which is I'm okay with it happening on camera. I'm okay with it happening in the scenes that I'm playing in. I'm okay with it being a thing. That's cool.
But I don't necessarily want it to be a major component.
Yeah, I don't want it to be like the most important thing, and I don't want to belabor the point. So, like, for example, if you have gore as okay on camera, you can have someone, disembowel someone in the scene. That's okay. But we don't want to like talk at length about how they're like trying to grab at their guts and push them back in to save themselves, and then they're like spewing blood out their mouth and whatever. We don't want to go into a lot of detail. It's something that can be there, but we don't want it to be like the big focus. The third way to approach this is what we call off-camera okay. Off-camera okay is we're okay with it happening outside of the active scene. So, like, for example, we're talking about gore. We might walk into a scene where there was a massacre. Maybe a vampire killed 12 people and just ripped them apart. That didn't happen while we were on the scene playing. It happened off camera. We walked on camera and now we see it. We're not going to describe it at length, but the actual violence, the actual brutality, that happened off camera. So that's okay. And then the fourth method is what we call a hard line. Hard line is no. Cannot happen. No way. No way, no how. It's not a part of this story. And then also we have the sort of the modifier for that. And the modifier is not me. So for example, I am A-okay with medical stuff, like medical treatment. I'm okay with that happening in game. I'm okay with it being a big thing in the story, but I don't want it to happen to my character. I don't want to have to deal with phlebotomy, for example. It's not something I'm comfortable with.
Phlebotomy, not lobotomy.
Phlebotomy.
Right.
Phlebotomy. I don't want my character to have their blood drawn in play.
Right.
Not a thing that I'm okay with. It's okay if other people deal with it, but I don't want to have to.
Sure.
And so there's a list of like 20 things that are pretty common.
And real room for you to add your own.
Yeah. It's a pretty simple sheet, and it's a way to lay ground rules, and it's just one of the many tools that we offer.
And as a group, you decide together, or each person gives their own opinion?
There's 2 modes of play assumed by that rule. The first is that, like, if you're playing a one-shot where one player, usually the director, the GM, is supposed to come to the table with pretty much everything planned in advance. Con games is a good example. The director comes with the sheet, the level sheet, and basically puts it on the table and says, this is the ground rules for the game. If someone doesn't want to participate, cool. They know what they can expect in this story. However, the primary mode of play is that we assume that the players will all be making their own characters, and everyone will be collaboratively telling a slightly longer story. In that case, everyone does a level sheet. They basically all do one of their own, and then the director compiles them and then does their own sort of composite sheet that shows the maximum levels allowed in the aggregate.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the 2 default modes of play.
Great. And you can even use that as a salesmanship technique.
Correct.
Yeah. Oh, look how gritty my game is going to be. It's all gross.
Yeah. You can just put it right out there. Whatever your game is going to be, you're communicating it.
So then I guess, we're talking about themes in the game.
Correct.
Which leads us into the fiction that it comes from. We haven't really mentioned the books, but offhandedly. So where does the story for iHunt come from?
The story comes from a series of novels that has about, I think it's 7 books now.
Wow.
Maybe more. I can't remember.
Maybe more.
I don't know.
Hundreds. Who knows at this point?
But no, the iHunt books. The first book in the series wasn't an iHunt book. It was called Blood Flow. It was a vampire novel that I wrote, and the setting for iHunt, San Gennaro, fictional city in California, was the setting for that book. And then I did iHunt as a one-off, a thing that I thought would be fun, and I really liked it, and a lot of people really liked it. So I made more iHunt books. And then Philomena did a book set in the same universe called Reaching Out that is about ghosts and stuff. So there's like a lot of stuff going on in that world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of books, a lot of really cool fiction that you can delve into if you want to, but you don't have to.
Okay, so that's an important point. If I haven't read the books, I can still play the game?
Yeah, I would say that as far as setting and stuff goes, the RPG has more than the books.
Okay.
The books really only address what they need to for the story.
Right.
Like, we don't do a lot of like laborious Tolkien-style world building. There is
no description of Lana's jerkin.
No, it's very practical. The world building is all, based on what's happening in the story in the now.
And it's experiential for the main character.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I think in Reaching Out, Molly is a little bit more, not descriptive,
Maybe.
That's not the word. She talks more about the metaphysics and that sort of thing than Lana bothers to or needs to, because, it's a difference in action and take.
Yeah. Lana doesn't really engage with the metaphysics beyond what it takes to kill someone.
Right. Which is good. Okay, so with content warning and knowing that the books are a thing that exists, sex.
Sex exists in the books. I think out of the 7, there's probably maybe 4 of them that have active sex in them.
Sure.
It's not like titillating for the most part.
No.
It's mostly bad sex.
Yeah.
It's the iHunt, the first iHunt book, Killing Monsters in the Gig Economy. It has explicitly bad sex, very very bad sex, unfulfilling sex.
Do you have to have sex, fulfilling or otherwise, in a game of iHunt?
No, and I don't even really address it that much.
No.
It's in there, I mention it a few times here and there, but there's no dice rolls for it or anything. There's no direct rules. It's assumed that any port in a storm, a lot of hunters will fuck, and there's passing references to it in a lot of the sample characters and stuff. But there's no active rules. It's not like Apocalypse World. There's no sex moves.
Mm-hmm. So my characters can absolutely be ace, and it's no biggie.
Yeah, you can be asexual. In fact, I think the book even says that.
How about drug use? Because the book has a lot. The novels have a lot of responsible, not so responsible drug use.
The approach that we take to drug use is that we take it from a non-judgmental, very sort of facts-forward standpoint or story-forward standpoint. The novels have a lot of drug use because the main character does a lot of drugs. It's not as prominent in the book, in the game book.
Yeah.
It's mentioned a few times. I don't think it's nearly as prominent, though. But the game book pretty much assumes that a lot of the characters probably will do casual drugs at some point.
Okay. But, and this is on the sheet of things you can opt out of. Or...
It's one of the levels.
Yeah, cool. So, a question from the audience, because there's just 20 people sitting in my kitchen asking us questions.
Sure.
Let's pretend. Monster survivability. From their experience playing Fate, players gets together, piles all of their aspects, and a monster is done. Sometimes, they say, it's nice for the monster to hang around a while. How does iHunt address that?
Well, in iHunt, the monsters have ratings. They have star ratings,
okay.
Like movie ratings, 1 to 5.
Okay.
1-star monsters are very, very weak. They're very pushovers that, your average person could probably stop very easily if they wanted to.
Okay.
5-star monsters are very, 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 very tough.
Okay.
So those are season villains in a TV series.
Sure.
They're very tough to take out, and they usually have a lot of minions and stuff like that. That's the one way. The other way is that Fate sort of does a good job of allowing you to negotiate terms of things like death.
That's true, yeah.
We do explicitly reference that in the book. If the director doesn't want a monster to be killed, they can negotiate with the players. They can volunteer to concede as opposed to being taken out. And that's absolutely a thing that they should be able to do.
All right, so we mentioned monster star ratings. I'm going to ask you about a series of monsters from the real world or fictitious world
Sure.
or whatever. Give me a star rating, and if you want to throw out how you would make that monster in our game.
Okay.
So let's start it off simply. How about Nemesis from Resident Evil 3?
Nemesis would probably be about a 3-star monster. He would have the invulnerability gift.
Right.
And some of the super strength gifts.
Okay.
Or not gifts, features.
Okay, so that's 3 out of 5.
Yeah, 3 out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah, he's well above average,
Yeah.
but he's not the astronomical level. He's mostly just unstoppable.
Right, okay.
Not particularly fearsome.
Fair enough. Okay, how about Baby Yoda?
Baby Yoda is probably a 1-star. I don't know if he has any superpowers or whatever, but I feel like you could probably just punt his ass.
All right.
All I know is that right now Baby Yoda has like a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes or something.
Just the baby himself.
Yeah, I think it's the baby that everyone's bitching about today.
I'm sorry, have they started rating children now? Just puppets?
I don't know. I don't know anything about this shit. It's,
Okay.
it's Star Wars.
It's Star Wars.
Why would I care?
It's fair. All right. Okay, so there's Baby Yoda. How about...
Something that isn't Disney shit.
I'm not going to give you all Disney shit. How about Dracula? The
Dracula?
big D.
4-star.
4-star.
4-star monster. He would have a pretty big array of basic features. He would probably be a wolf family vampire.
Okay.
Vampires, there are 3 basic families in San Gennaro. They're based on mythological animal spirits that trace back to some like Mayan gods, loosely because of the Latin heritage in San Gennaro.
There you go.
One of the families is the wolf family, and they're very physically powerful. And so that would probably be Dracula. Or no, he's probably a bat. I don't know. I'd have to think about it a little bit.
Or he might be a weird other thing.
Yeah, he's probably another thing. That's the thing. The families in San Gennaro are the families in San Gennaro, but Dracula's from way far away, so he's probably something else.
Okay, cool. And you said already what kind of gifts he would have. That's cool.
Yeah.
How about the Blob?
Blob. I can't remember much about the Blob, so he's probably a 2-star.
Okay. It just consumed and consumed.
Yeah, he didn't really, like, it wasn't this big array of terrifying things. It was just like one thing, and it was hard to stop.
Right. Okay.
One fearsome power and hard to stop is about a 2-star.
All right. How about then Godzilla?
Gojira doesn't really apply to...
She corrected me without saying anything. That was smooth.
Gojira doesn't really apply to the scale of monsters that we deal with because iHunters couldn't take them down.
Okay.
If you got a contract for Gojira, then you'd have to like...
Swipe left.
Well, like, there's no way to really grade that job.
Sure. How about Puck from A Midsummer's Night's Dream?
Puck actually has a really weird array of powers, a lot of illusion stuff, and a lot of magic that's implied.
Sure.
He's probably at least a 3-star, maybe a 4-star, just because of the variety of things he has available to him.
Okay. How about Jillian from Practical Magic?
She is probably...
That's the redhead sister.
The Nicole Kidman?
Yes.
She's probably only a 1-star or 2-star witch. Because she doesn't really have a lot of magic.
Right.
At the end, she does have access to some, but it takes a group to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Father Gascoigne.
Father Gascoigne from Bloodborne?
Yes.
Probably 3-star. He's got a lot of physical powers, but that's about it.
Okay. Devilman.
Devilman? By the end, he's actually he's a 4-star demon, maybe a 5-star.
Okay.
He's kind of absurd. He's one of the top tier demons. Like he's really, really, really powerful.
But we do have some room for covering that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say he's just straight up a 5-star demon.
Sure.
He can do a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Lucifer, on the other hand, not so much. Lucifer's like a 6, 7, 8-star. We don't have rules at that level.
Well, we kind of do. We kind of do as we branch into the catastrophe rules.
Oh yeah, but even then, it's really, really, really ridiculous.
Sure.
Like he can blow up the moon and stuff. Like that's not the degree that we play with.
Sure. Okay. So assuming then that there's some crime against nature going on, Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo is a hunter, not a monster.
You hear that?
There's a Scooby-Doo inspired hunter group as one of the sample groups.
Okay. So then I guess the last one then, capitalism.
Capitalism isn't a monster. Capitalism is the antagonist of the series.
I thought it was a vampire.
No.
Oh.
No. That's an analogy. No, capitalism is the insurmountable thing you can't beat.
Oh, okay.
It's not the monster.
All right. So I know we covered some very traditional monsters.
Sure.
And we gave them some room to breathe. Within those types of monsters, werewolves, vampires, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What do you think that we did that tweaked the story a little bit in an interesting way?
Oh, you mean with the monsters?
Yeah, like the specific instances, or like any group of monsters we created that you think is a little bit outside of what you would expect from a urban fantasy novel.
Yeah, so one of our monster types is reptoids, which are a sort of satirical look at the awful racist conspiracy theory of lizard people who control the world through, Illuminatis and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Our reptoids are actually, they're like middle managers.
Mm-hmm.
They're very brutish, very like stupid, and they even if they have ambition, they don't really have the ability to get anywhere with it. So
Sure.
mostly they just sort of hit walls. They're very much like the lizards, the dinosaurs in Super Mario Brothers, the movie.
Which, of course, everyone listening to this will have seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're sort of taking the piss out of that awful, awful, awful trope.
So we took a terrible trope and we put it into our book specifically to make fun of it and flip it on its head.
Correct.
So you don't think J.K. Rowling would be a big fan?
I think J.K. Rowling is a horrible piece of shit, and she would hate it because I'm trans.
Oh, there you go. Anything about the more traditional, expected types of monsters that you think we did that was a little bit fun? And by we, I mostly mean me, because that was largely my writing. Compliment me, Liv. I'm desperate. Compliment me.
Put me on the spot. I really like the sort of the multi-tiered approach to werewolves. We have 3 types of werewolves. We have ones that are born that way. We have ones that are spread by a virus, and then we have ones that are like supernaturally cursed. And I think that that's interesting because usually whenever you have stories like that, it's sort of they settle on one direction and they just decide that that's the truth in their world. But I like that we have a multi-tiered approach, and I like that it breeds a lot of ambiguity.
The Z word.
Oh, zombies. Yeah, we don't use that word in the book. It's racist. We shouldn't use it. It's bad. Instead, we have hungry dead. The hungry dead. Well, because, I mean, even if you go back to, the modern source material, Romero didn't use that word.
No.
He didn't. And everyone attributes him with starting the zombie genre, but, he never used the word.
Where did the word come from?
The word comes from...
Or how did it enter into horror?
Common usage in American cinema. Well, it came from Haitian legend.
Sure. But I mean...
Of course. But the reason why we have it in America as cinematic term is because of the movie White Zombie.
Okay.
Which I think is very telling about the nature of the word, because literally the movie is called White Zombie. The movie acknowledges that the word is by default a black term, a Haitian term, and they are taking that and they are changing it. They are modifying it. They're making it a white zombie. It was more self-aware than even your modern stuff, your Walking Deads and stuff. Sure,
absolutely. So we don't use the Z word. What do we do with the shambling dead? What do we cover with shambling dead?
We have 3 types of them. One of them is the traditional corpse come to life to eat people, the Romeros. Then you have scientific experiments gone awry, your sort of Resident Evil type things.
Woohoo.
And then you have something that's a little bit closer to an iZombie. It's you have they're conscious, they're aware, they're sentient, but they have to eat organs. If they don't eat organs, then they lose control and they become one of the terrible types. Sort of ruthlessly cannibalistic in a controlled way.
Which, feels very real.
Yeah.
What we were talking about. Warm Bodies was the other.
Yeah, Warm Bodies is the other one that's popular like
that.
But
I think there's a bunch of them. So a question from the audience, since we're talking about the shambling dead, how do I get the stain out of my carpet?
Usually if you have to ask that, especially if you have to ask that of a horror writer, then probably the answer is you have to cut up the carpet and replace it.
There you go. You consider yourself to be die-hard leftist.
Yeah.
Okay. From your Twitter, which I have read a little bit of.
Yeah.
You're pretty anti-capitalist.
Yeah.
And yet, you are making a book for sale.
Yeah, I'm a bad socialist for wanting money for my labor. Yeah, no, we're doing things independently. It's creator-owned. We are getting the proceeds from our work. We are not selling to a corporation. We use some intermediaries, which suck, credit card processors and stuff like that, and storefronts. It is our work, and we deserve to be compensated for it. The trajectory of socialist revolution typically trends toward moments where workers were not being paid for their work.
So then, with that in mind, how many coats is a copy of iHunt worth?
You mean literal coats?
Yes.
You're referencing capital?
I'm trying to.
Okay. Philomena is referencing capital. Basically, there's bits where Marx talks about prices of things.
It's literally all I can remember.
Because
sorry.
it's a very sort of laborious take on that. in modern sense, every copy of iHunt is about one coat, at least for the cheap coats that, we'd wear.
Great, very good. All right, so from the audience, someone asked about playing hunters with gifts and them showing up on the rolls of iHunt with a contract on their heads.
Okay, so the book does address that the iHunt app technically can be used to take out a contract on anyone. Sometimes it is used to take a contract out on a hunter. It happens sometimes. Yeah. It's against the terms and conditions, but nobody reads the terms and conditions or cares about them.
I sure don't.
So that happens. Now, as far as monster gifts and features and stuff, that can happen. We don't assume that that's the default state of play, but there's really nothing stopping you from doing so. It's very easy. The rules are pretty clear on how it works. You just sort of slap one of those traits onto a character. It works.
Great. Okay. So from the audience, this is both your opinion and then Lana's opinion.
Okay.
Easiest to hardest type of monsters to hunt.
Okay, so easiest are probably reptoids because they're stupid.
Oh, God.
They're just...
You almost feel bad for them.
Yeah, they're pretty daft, and they don't really, they're not capable. They're strong, but you can trick them very easily. The hardest...
Fail sons. Yeah, kind of a whole...
Yeah, they're very fail son, yeah. Yeah. They're the Donald Trump Juniors of the world.
Oh, God. So true.
Yeah, they don't pose a real threat, in any meaningful way. They wish they could. So, the hard one would probably be archdemons. Archdemons are pretty much impossible to kill. If you kill them, they just go back to hell and come back later. So, they're tough. Now, Lana, on the other hand, Lana thinks that the hardest are probably werewolves. The reason being is that anything else, you get hit by it, it just hurts, it breaks a bone, cuts you open or whatever. Werewolves, they scratch you, and you either get an inoculation pretty much immediately, or you become a werewolf. Congratulations, you're out of career. You can't really iHunt as a werewolf, because if you try to, then you will go ballistic, and you will tear people apart. Probably not good for the bottom line.
Probably not.
Yeah. The easiest, however, are vampires. Vampires are very, very prideful, and you can basically dare them into doing whatever you want.
Great.
You know that old thing that parents used to say, if your friends were jumping off a bridge, would you? If they told you to, would you? Vampires, you can just do that. You can tell them, I don't think that you can survive a fall off of that bridge. I don't think you could do it. If you fall on the ground, you're just going to splatter and die because you're weak. And the vampire will then say, oh, really? Well, I'm going to jump off of there. I'm going to survive, and then I'm going to kill you. Ha, 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 mortal. And then they jump off of the bridge, splat, they break their legs, and you shove a stake in their chest, you cut their head off, whatever. It's ridiculously easy to make a vampire do something stupid.
Excellent. Very good. What's your kink?
So that's a funny joke. So the term kink in the game is basically the subdivision of hunters. It's how you hunt. There are 4 different kinds by default. There are 4 major types. And the reason why we call them kinks is because hunters need a way to talk about things in public that not only doesn't get the public to pay attention, but gets them to be embarrassed and look away. They think you're a weirdo if you start talking about your kink in public, but if you start talking about killing monsters, they're going to be like, what the fuck? And they're going to pay attention. Right. So if you're like, oh yeah, what's your kink? Everyone's going to nope the fuck out of there.
So then what's your kink?
Because Lana is the character that I'm in the head of the most. I've written 5 novels with her in first person. Definitely knight. She's the first knight.
She is the first knight.
Yeah.
Okay. AOC, who is obviously a hunter.
Yeah.
What's her kink? What's AOC's kink, Livia?
Oh my god. So she's actually cited in the book too. There's a picture of her. Even.
I know.
There's a picture of her. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would be a FUI.
Really?
Yeah, an information technology type. She owns Twitter.
She owns Twitter.
She has the strongest social media presence of anyone in Congress.
All right.
And yeah.
Somebody from the audience asked combat modifiers if you are kicking in the head of a monstrous Nazi while singing the Mr. Rogers neighborhood song.
So that's a reference to the rule that I have that you can't play the game if you're a fascist.
Oh.
At the end of that, I said that you should get some help, or you should heal yourself, or watch some Mr. Rogers or something.
Ah.
And if you are singing "It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood" or whatever, and you want that to have a mechanical advantage, then you use the create an advantage action, which creates an aspect.
Okay.
With a free invoke or more, depending on how you roll.
Okay.
And whenever you invoke that aspect, you get +2, or you could compel it against the monster. I would say that you should probably compel it against the monster.
Great.
To basically force them to make a hard choice of either withdrawing or engaging.
Can I play iHunt if I've never been on the 5?
Oh, the highway.
Yeah, if I've never been to California.
Oh, yeah. So there's actually a primer for how San Gennaro, the fictional city in California that iHunt takes place in. There's a primer for how it works and how to use it in your stories. You could also play in a different city. You can make your own city, or you can use, your own hometown or whatever. You can even play outside of America, but you'll have to change up some of the assumptions about the gig economy and the way that labor laws and healthcare work.
Sure.
But yeah, there's a nice little primer in there for using San Gennaro. Yeah, you don't need to have ever driven on the 5 or the 1.
Or the 1. The 1 is beautiful, if you get a chance.
Yeah, the Oceanside Highway is beautiful.
So now it gets a little bit more mimetic.
Sure.
So be prepared for that.
Whatever.
Okay. If iHunt was a cookbook, what kind of recipes would it have?
Pastrami burrito.
Okay.
That's a SoCal classic. Actually, I'll just break it down. One of the things that I identify with most as a Southern Californian is a little shack in Fairfax, Hollywood, called Okie Dog.
Mm-hmm.
Okie Dog is a little hot dog shack that was started by a guy who went to Vietnam, and he was stationed in Okinawa. Mm. And while he was there, he learned how to make these weird sort of flatbread burrito things with hot dogs in them. And he brought back that recipe and then blended it with all of the other local traditional foods. The Hollywood Jewish culture. He took pastrami, kosher hot dogs, from the other locals. He took chili from the sort of Tex-Mex culture. Mm-hmm. From the Latinx Hispanic culture there, he took tortillas, flour tortillas, mm-hmm. and blended them into this burrito that is a gigantic goddamn burrito full of chili, pastrami, hot dogs and cheese, sometimes French fries, sometimes, sour cream, other things.
It's a little extra.
It is. It's immensely extra.
Delicious.
It's super cheap, super filling, and just this blend of cultures. This amazing blend of working class cultures. Okay. So yeah, that would be iHunt as a cookbook.
Excellent. Very good. Good to know. Okay, can cats have a little iHunt?
Yes, cats can have a little iHunt as a snack.
Can I play Angie?
Yeah, you can play Angie. I wrote Angie most of the time.
So that makes sense. Yeah. Great. In fact, the next iHunter I play, that's definitely going to be their aspect.
Angie.
Well, don't talk to me, I'm Angie.
Oh, don't talk to me, I'm Angie, yeah.
So let's pretend for a minute that you're the sort of person who likes to get in fights on Twitter.
Okay.
Let's pretend. I know it's a reach.
Yeah, it's outside of my comfort zone, but okay.
Yeah, so let's say you wanted to have a fight on the internet. How would you argue that iHunt is a better Christmas movie than Die Hard?
Oh, okay.
It's getting real stupid up in here.
iHunt has one-star monsters that are demons. They're called imps or gremlins. Okay. So, canonically, iHunt has gremlins in it.
Has gremlins.
Gremlins is the best Christmas movie,
hands
objectively,
down. Yep.
And it blows Die Hard out of the water on every metric.
In every metric, yeah.
So, iHunt is a better Christmas movie than Die Hard. There
you go. Can't argue it. It's just straight facts laying right out there for you. All right, fantastic. So then, superheroes. I know how much you love them. What superhero would you want to, or what superhero would be the best to beat to death with a copy of iHunt?
Rorschach.
Oh, wow. You had that right there.
Yeah.
Not stuff it down Iron Man's throat.
No.
No?
No, I'd beat Rorschach.
I think Alan Moore would be in favor of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to play with Alan Moore.
He's the only wizard that's okay?
Yeah, he's the only wizard that we don't hunt for money.
There you go. You heard it here. Alan Moore, the only wizard you don't hunt for money. If iHunt was a Disney princess, what Disney princess would it be?
Tiana.
Tiana? Why?
She's a worker.
What Star Wars franchise do you think has the most in common with iHunt? What part of the Star Wars franchise has the most in common?
Oh, the Star Wars Holiday Special. Because it's the only one that's honest.
It's so true.
iHunt is a game driven by honesty.
What Bush war crime do you think has the most influence on the creation of iHunt?
Oh my god.
I didn't warn her about this one, guys.
That's a hard one. I would say the application of the United States military in a self-proclaimed crusade.
Okay.
Because it is such an egregious, like, flagrant abuse of power. It is absolutely disregarding everything that people say is an American norm.
Okay.
And there's been no consequence whatsoever for that. That person has been held up as a good person, as, you know, this charming old guy, and not a fucking monster responsible for a crusade. So yeah, that's the one. And in fact, canonically, the guy who threw a shoe at him, iHunter.
What kink?
He's a knight.
He's a knight. There you go. So on a lighter note.
Yeah.
One dead, one alive, because that's how the way you have to play these games.
One dead, one alive. Okay.
What counterculture figure, author, philosopher, academic, would you have had to ghostwrite this with you if you could have?
If I could have. Oh, okay. So, alive.
Yeah.
George Ciccarello, I think is how it's pronounced. Mar. I've never heard it pronounced.
No, we've only ever seen it online on Twitter.
Yeah, but
and his articles and his books. Obviously.
Yeah, like I've talked to the guy, but I've never heard his name.
Yeah.
So he's a professor, a former professor at Temple University in Philadelphia, and a scholar of Venezuelan politics. He's written a few amazing books. He wrote a book called Building the Commune, which is about radical democracy in Venezuela. He knows worker movements like none out there. Like, he's amazing. He's a wonderful guy. I would love to have worked with him on anything, but iHunt, I think he would have a really, really, really interesting take on.
Great.
Now, the other was dead.
Yes. Let's say no longer with us for whatever purpose.
Oh, okay.
Transcendent, whatever. You know.
Dead.
Sure.
That would be Mark Fisher.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
Mark Fisher is cited in iHunt. His book, Capitalist Realism, is considered essential reading. It's a book about the way that we have embraced capitalism to the exclusion of all other possibility. It's sort of the harsh other end of Francis Fukuyama's The End of History.
Okay.
And
this is short. It's like 80 pages. You guys could read it.
It's a very short book. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I recommended it.
Totally read it.
It's pretty short. But yeah, it's definitely a good read for iHunt to sort of get you in the mood and get you angry.
Plus, he writes about vampires.
Yeah, he wrote an essay, a pretty controversial essay called Exiting the Vampire's Castle.
And that's Castlevania fanfic?
That's... sure. it's not.
I saw that the lasers like blurred in her eyes for a minute, and then she decided to spare me. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's written a lot of stuff, but all good socialist writers write about vampires.
That's true.
Marx was the pioneer of writing awful, capitalist critiques by using vampires, ghosts. Werewolves.
So you're saying this comes from iHunt itself comes from a long established praxis.
Oh yeah. It's definitely from the Gothic Marxist tradition. In fact, San Gennaro, the city that iHunt takes place in, is very much like a modern inheritor of the Gothic tradition.
Okay. Southern Californian Gothic.
It's Southern California Gothic, yeah.
All right. Okay, so then I have two final questions for you.
Sure.
And then a series of quick rapid fires.
Okay.
Yes or no's.
Sure.
Next, I want to ask you, for the sake of paying it forward.
Yeah.
If for some reason somebody couldn't play iHunt, not that they wouldn't, but that they couldn't, what are one or two games they could play instead? Okay,
other games that they could play that I recommend, like endorsed games.
Sure.
Unknown Armies.
Yeah.
Unknown Armies is a big one. It's the only other urban fantasy game that I feel really does humanity, and it's
not as in a stat, but as in like the existence of humanity as a.
It embraces humanity as a concept fundamental to the game mechanics and to the approach. It's beautiful. And iHunt wouldn't exist if it weren't for games like Unknown Armies.
Absolutely.
Greg Stoltze and John Tynes are brilliant, very, 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 very good, and I do recommend them.
Okay. Anything else?
So second one, I would say Blowback by Elizabeth Sampit.
Absolutely.
It does competence porn, and it does complex, intense relationship drama very, very well. I love it so much. Very, very good.
And she used real models for her artwork.
She used stock photos, actually.
Yeah, okay. So
which is what I did.
A similar method.
Yeah, so that's there. It's such a good book. Let's see. Other ones, Primetime Adventures.
Sure.
Primetime Adventures heavily influenced the episode and series model that iHunt uses. And it also, playing Primetime Adventures for years and years and years, taught me a lot of the framing and directing techniques that are in the advanced directing chapter in iHunt. It's hugely influential.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leverage does competence porn in the way that iHunt does, and it was very influential on the skill set system.
Yeah.
And that one's Rob Donahue and Clark Valentine did most of the systems design on that. That was very good.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Clark.
Then Josh Roby's work on Smallville.
Yeah.
It's very, very influential, very good stuff. And Amanda
Valentine.
Valentine.
Both of those, with Cam, too.
Cam Banks was the overarching lead on Leverage and Smallville. So that does relationship drama in a very good way. I really love.
Yeah.
So that's like 5 games.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So you can play other games.
Go play all of those.
No. I'd mean, buy a couple of copies of iHunt first. But.
Yeah.
All right, so then the other question, this is related to, earlier we asked about doing iHunt in the Victorian era.
Sure.
How many copies would we have to sell of iHunt before you would watch the Star Wars series?
I would commit to 1,000.
Sure.
If we sell 1,000 copies, I'll watch the Star Wars movies and live tweet them.
Okay.
If we very quickly sell 2,500, I won't.
Okay, you heard that? If we sell 2,500 copies of this book within, say, 6 months?
Yeah.
Okay. She won't watch the Star Wars movies and tell you all the reasons why you should actually hate it.
Yeah, you probably don't want to.
No, you don't want her opinion.
I'm a very angry person.
So you should buy at least 3 copies just to make sure it doesn't happen.
You got to kick it up.
Right.
Got to kick it up.
It's just to be safe.
Yeah.
For all of our sakes.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to ask you a real quick series for yes and no's.
Yeah.
Can I play? Can I play a werewolf?
Not by default.
Can I play a vampire?
Not by default.
Can I play a witch?
Not by default.
That book's coming. Okay. Can I play a lesbian?
Yes.
Can I play a straight person?
I guess.
Okay, fair. All right.
Before we get on to those, the thing about the monsters is you could technically play with them with what's in the book, but we don't really have a lot of social support for it. We don't really go into what it means to be those things.
Right. So you could play Natalie to the Lanas.
Yeah, in the iHunt novels, Lana, the main character, her girlfriend is a vampire named Natalie.
And she's involved in the hunt sometimes.
Yeah, she is. But yeah.
And you could play Molly.
Yeah.
If you wanted to.
Don't insult your work. Continue.
All right, okay. Can I play the brothers from Supernatural?
Yeah, you could easily do that. Up until the point where they get, chosen by God type.
All right, okay. Can I play Buffy?
No.
No.
The book doesn't really have support for that. The sort of chosen one tier of things where you're, super powerful and that sort of thing. Although there is a novel, an iHunt novel, that is about a character like that.
Plug goes here?
Yeah, it's called iHunt the Chosen One.
Very good.
It's probably the best of the novels.
Just because it's the most recent.
Yeah.
Okay, can I play Buffy's creepy, overly needy boyfriend self-insert? Not boyfriend, male friend.
Oh, Xander?
I forgot. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, you could. I take the piss out of him in iHunt, in the first one, Killing Monsters in the Gig Economy.
But he has a pretty good redemption arc, I feel
He does.
Yeah.
I think he does.
Alright, cool. Can I play Sandra Bullock's character from Practical Magic?
So, Sandra Bullock's character from Practical Magic,
sure.
The book doesn't assume that you can play supernatural characters. If you're playing one of the 4 kinks of iHunter, you can have a little bit of magic, but not quite that much.
So an iHunter can have a little bit of magic.
A little bit of magic for a snack.
Can I play Henry Rollins' daughter in He Never Died?
Yeah, you could.
Okay, great. I will then. Can I play Indiana Jones?
Yeah, you can play Indiana Jones, I guess.
Okay. Can I play an accountant?
Yeah.
Can I play an English as a second language teacher?
Yes.
Can I play a plumber?
Yeah.
Can I play specifically John Leguizamo as a plumber?
I don't see why not.
Okay, alright. Can I play El Santo?
Depends on the source material.
Okay.
If in some of them he is assumed to be supernatural.
Okay.
In some of them he's not.
Okay, that's fair. That's valid.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I play the guy who says, "I'll kill you," in Gundam Wing?
Hiro Yui?
That's the one.
No, there are no Gundams in.
I'm sorry. Did you just imply that you have made a game that does not have giant robots in it?
Yeah, we do have a game that has giant robots in it.
Okay.
A Fate game, so
I guess we
technically it's
covered
compatible.
that. Compatible, you say?
Yeah. No. There are no giant robots in iHunt.
Oh, God. It hurts a little bit. Could I play a gunpla expert?
Yeah. Someone who's into plastic model kits, yeah, sure.
What kink would they be?
Probably a FUI. They're like tech experts and information experts.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Tinkerers.
Tinkerers. Can I play a Ghostbuster?
Yeah, actually, you could play a Ghostbuster.
Okay. Are there ghosts?
Yeah, there are ghosts.
Okay. We don't have a section on ghosts, though.
No.
That's coming.
Yeah, the book Reaching Out touches on that stuff, so we will do that down the line.
Yeah, okay. Can I play a Nazi?
No.
Oh.
If the director wants to use one as like an villain or whatever to be killed, then I guess they could do that. But no, you can't play a fascist that's counter-revolutionary.
Counter-revolutionary. Got it. If who can play iHunt?
Basically anybody but a fascist.
Okay.
You're not allowed playing one if you're a fascist.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 15, how queer is iHunt?
I would say probably like a 17-ish.
Okay.
No, it's pretty queer.
It's pretty queer.
Yeah.
It's really queer.
I think that there are a couple of like assumed straight people, or at least vaguely so.
But if you read it in the book, unless it spells it out that they're straight, they're probably not.
Yeah, they're probably not.
The default assumption.
Yeah.
It's not straight.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. I think that roughly covers it as far as this goes. I think I've asked you enough stupid questions and some good ones.
Okay.
One more time, where can people get this book?
Currently, it is available digitally on Itch.io and on DriveThruRPG. Either location, if you purchase it, whenever the print version comes to be, you'll get a $25 off coupon to purchase it. I don't know how much that'll be or when that'll happen. It's going to be a little complicated because we live in Japan and ordering proofs will take months.
Quite some time.
Yeah, it'll take a long time, and it depends on how many copies of the proof and how quickly they come, all of that sort of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, so currently you can buy it on DriveThruRPG and Itch.
How many copies should someone buy for their gaming group?
At least one per person, but probably two. They're going to want one copy per person to keep as a keepsake, and they're definitely going to want one for practical use.
And we've found that if you live in a multi-floor home,
Yeah.
lucky you, you're going to want at least one per floor of your house.
Yeah, you don't want to carry it up and downstairs.
It's a little bit heavy. It'd be too much work
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, so definitely do yourself a favor and have one per floor of the house plus an additional...
Per player.
Yeah.
And, keep in mind that gets us closer to the total of preventing Liv from ever watching the Star Wars movies, so that you never have to hear her full opinion about them.
Yeah, you don't want to hear my opinions of them.
No one does. So thank you so much for our time.
Yeah, how does that work?
I don't know.
Thank you for listening to us, assuming that you did.
Yeah, if you're still here, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. All right.
Bye-bye.
See you.
See you.